Hey, welcome back, everyone. It is another edition of Catholic Cocktails. This is the show that is, first of all, a production of Salt and Light Catholic Radio, but it's where we sit down and we have a drink with some of the saints and blesseds of the Catholic faith. And once again, we are here in the beautiful Harp Irish Pub in Meridian filming. Yes. We have a new bartender that we're going to introduce you to here in just a little bit. But first, we want to remind you, drinking with the saints. That's where all the drinks and the fun facts about the saints, it's all based on this book by Michael P. Foley, and it would be a great gift for the Catholic drinker in your family.
I love that. Alrighty, so each week we'll be talking with Teresa Zapeta, who's our resident saint expert. In every video, we introduce the drink and we introduce the saint. We talk about them a little bit. We talk about the drink and what you'll need, and then we'll pop it over to Teresa. She'll talk about the saint. We'll bring it back here, make the drink with our bartender, and talk a little bit about what Teresa shared.
Sounds simple enough. Well, this week we're going to highlight two saints. It's Saints Peter and Paul. And of course, we all know that Saint Peter was the head of the new church, our very first pope. Yeah, that's right. And Saint Paul, one of our greatest apostles, and the interesting story about his conversion. So the cocktail that we're going to make today is the Gibson Martini. So why this pairing? Why the Gibson Martini? Well, it's because it's garnished with a pearl onion that is skewered on one of those really cool plastic swords. So the onion, more for St. Peter, and of course St. Paul's symbol, the sword.
Those little swords, the only reason I drink. So as far as the hardware for this drink goes, it's pretty much like all of our cocktails so far. You'll need a shaker, some ice, and a cocktail glass.
Well, we know what we're making and how we're going to do it, so now let's send it over to our area saint expert. Here's Teresa Zapeta with more about Saints Peter and Paul.
On June 29th, the church celebrates two powerhouses in our church history, and those would be Saints Peter and Paul. So today we're going to lift a glass to these great men, but because they're not obscure saints, I'm not going to retrace in detail either of their lives, but just give a short summary of them. I'll start with St. Peter. He was a Galilean, son of Jonah. He lived in Bethsaida. He was married. He was a commercial fisherman with his brother Andrew and James and John, sons of Zebedee. Originally, his name was Simeon in Aramaic, or Simon in Greek. Jesus, upon meeting him, changes his name to Kepha, which means rock or stone in Greek, or in Aramaic. Excuse me, I got that wrong. It's Kepha in Aramaic, which means rock or stone, and it's Kephas in Greek, which or it's Petros in Greek. So either Kephas, or Petros in Greek. Peter, when asked by Jesus, the disciples were asked by Jesus, Jesus said, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter came forward and said, "You are the Christ." Jesus then responds with, "Blessed are you, for no mere flesh and blood has revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven." He goes on, and one of the things Jesus also says to Peter is, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." We get some insight into Peter's character too through some of the things he does. He's very impetuous and courageous. He walks on water. He suggests making tents for Jesus, Moses, and Elijah on Mount Tabor. He also is adamant that he will not deny Christ. But we know the rest of the story. Peter actually does deny Christ. Peter died during the reign of Nero in about 64 AD, probably in Nero's garden. Nero's gardens were the scene of many horrific martyrdoms amongst the Christians of the early church. Old tradition holds, and ancient historians report, that Peter asked not to be crucified upright like Jesus, but rather upside down. He did not feel he was worthy to die in the exact same way as the Lord. Now, let's take a quick look at the other powerhouse we're celebrating today, St. Paul. Can you have any more completely different characters? I can't imagine. They are so different. Let's take a look at Paul. First of all, he was Saul of Tarsus. He was a city man. He lived in what is now southern Turkey. He was not part of the close-knit group of 12 apostles. He was a Jew, but he wasn't from Judea. In fact, he was a Roman citizen who came from a well-to-do family who probably collaborated with the Roman authorities. He was a tent maker, and he was educated in Jewish law by the rabbinical leader Gamaliel in the temple at Jerusalem. And he was a Pharisee. Now, we all know that he was a murderous persecutor of the Jews. In fact, he was an accomplice at the martyrdom of St. Stephen. We also know about his extraordinary conversion on the way to Damascus. The Acts of the Apostles describe 3 great missionary journeys that he took. He wanted to take a 4th from Jerusalem to Rome to Spain, but the Jews hindered that. He spent 2 years in prison in Cyprus. Then, when he did make it to Rome, he spent 2 years in prison then. And then we don't get any more from the Acts of the Apostles, but what we do get is things we surmise from his epistles, because he wrote extensive letters to the many churches he formed, and they were always dear to his heart. It says that he, after his imprisonment in Rome, he probably went on and traveled to Spain, then east, then came back to Rome, where he was imprisoned and eventually beheaded because he was a Roman citizen, and the crueler form of punishments were saved for those who weren't Roman citizens. So he didn't have as excruciating as death as Peter did, or Christ. He probably died in the year 67 AD. So today we celebrate on June 29th the feast of the Prince of the Apostles and the Apostles to the Gentiles, the Apostle to the Gentiles, both of them who did so much to form and strengthen the nascent church.
Again, we are here at the Harp Irish Pub in Meridian, and Teresa's just told you all about Saints Peter and Paul. And now we're going to teach you all about the Gibson Martini. And today's bartender is Garrett. And Garrett, tell us, looks like there's a lot of ingredients here. This one's going to be a toughie.
Right. Pretty simple, standard martini ingredients, gin and dry vermouth. We're going to use Martini Rossi, which is really one of the major competitors for vermouth. And then Hendrick's gin, which is just, you can use any gin, but Hendrick's is just a good all-around gin, balances everything out. And then pickled onions for the garnish, which is what separates this from other martinis.
And other martinis would use vodka and olives versus gin and onions.
Yes.
And I was curious, what exactly is vermouth?
Well, the best way I can describe it is it tastes like grass clippings.
Yummy.
It's technically an aromatic herb liqueur, so.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we know all the ingredients now, so now Garrett's going to walk us through how to properly make the Gibson Martini.
So we're going to start with the Gibson Martini. 2 ounces of a gin. We are going to use Hendrick's, just a good all-around balanced gin. 2 ounces of that. Then dry vermouth, Martini and Rossi. About 1/3 to 1/2 ounce of this. Add ice into the mixing beaker and give it a good stir. 5 to 10 seconds should do it. Grab a strainer. Strain into a martini glass. And then pickled onions for garnish. And there you have a Gibson.
All right. Well, here we go. This is the Gibson Martini.
Clink it and sink it. Tastes like gin.
I haven't really had that many gin drinks
I was
before.
going to say,
so.
isn't this a kind of a new experience for you?
Mm-hmm. Not bad.
It's one of the more mild gin drinks that I've had. I've had one before that it tasted legit like flowers were in my mouth and soap. So
Yummy.
I'm a little hesitant when it comes to gin.
And the grass clippings really weren't that bad. So
It's kind of nice, like a lemongrass type vibe, I guess. If you're into gin drinks, you'd probably like this because it's very mild. It's not like eat your face off aggressive. But
well, I enjoyed it anyway. So that might be something that you want to celebrate when we're talking about the Saints Peter and Paul.
Yep.
Of course, the first pope of the new church. And Paul, wow, what a story there.
Right.
But I was curious about the onions. There is something in the book, Drinking with the Saints, in regards to why the onion is a symbol.
Of St. Paul, St. Peter, excuse me. So, as we all know, St. Peter is referred to as like the gatekeeper of heaven, right? Right, we get that a lot. So there's a story, if you go to page 145 in the book, there's the little last call section, and it tells a little bit about why that's the symbol. So I thought I'd read it for you guys. So, you can also, I need to mention, you can also have wine on this feast day. That's another big one. But wine goes with everything. So,
I'll take to that.
There you go. Wine on St. Peter's Day is an appropriate choice given his mother's everlasting assignment in heaven. So raise a glass and pray that St. Peter the gatekeeper may be as kind to his own mother and that he may lift us out of the fiery pit with a bottle that he once gave to a friend. So the reason this comes up is because there's this story where St. Peter's mother was actually like a horrible person or something like that. And so she was like cast into hell. And then Peter like prayed and was like, Lord, have mercy on her. And God was like, okay, or something like that. And so for some reason, they say that Peter took an onion and like put it down, and his mother grabbed the roots of the onion and he pulled her back up to heaven. So that's why an onion is a symbol of St. Peter. Anyway, check out the book. It's in there.
Seems a stretch, but
I know. I didn't understand it, but it was a cool story. Anyway.
Okay. Well, there you go.
There you have it.
And again, special thanks to the Harp Irish Pub here in Meridian for hosting, and Garrett making a couple of wonderful Gibson Martinis
thank
for
you,
us.
Garrett.
And Catholic Cocktails is a production of Salt and Light Catholic Radio. Who do we have coming up next week?
So next week, we will be talking about Saints Cyril and Methodius. Don't mess that up.
That's right.
Say that 10 times fast. And we'll be trying another martini, but this time it's the lemon drop martini, which is very sweet and light, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, me too. Okay, well, grab a glass here. Saints Peter and Paul,
Pray
for us.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. See you next week.